The two-day convergence, organized by the ministry with support from the Waka Gambia project, brought together key stakeholders to review and validate the draft regulations that will guide how the Climate Change Act 2026 is implemented across government and relevant sectors. The workshop signals the country's shift from policy direction to practical governance tools needed to manage climate risks, reduce emissions where possible, and strengthen national resilience. Speaking during the opening ceremony, Ibrahim Jawara, the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Natural Resources, said the meeting reflects commitment to serve the country, noting that the regulations must address national priorities and thematic regulatory needs.
The Gambia will be among the less than 75 countries that actually have a Climate Change Act. More than half of the countries in the world do not have a Climate Change Act. This is another important milestone for MECNA under the leadership of our Minister, Honorable Rohijan Manjang, and indeed the Gambia. Ladies and gentlemen, your expertise, insights, and commitment are needed as we come together to refine and finalize a regulatory framework that is not only robust, but also operationally feasible and implementable across the Gambia.
Mr. Jawara also emphasized that the draft should include compliance and enforcement measures, prudent governance of climate finance and provisions for carbon markets aligned with international standards and beneficial to the Gambia's economy.
As we deliberate, I urge you to give your best input, mindful that the regulations we shape must comprehensively address national priorities and thematic regulatory needs, such as monitoring, reporting, and verification, MRV, mechanisms to ensure transparency and accountability, integration of climate planning into sectoral strategies and local government area plans to foster coherence and inclusivity, strengthening institutional coordination alongside clear reporting obligations to enhance efficiency, designing effective compliance and enforcement measures to uphold the integrity of the Act.
The Climate Change Act establishes the legal foundation for coordinated climate action across ministries, local government areas, and other institutions. However, officials noted that without implementing regulations, laws can remain difficult to apply in everyday decision-making. The general implementation regulations are therefore significant because they define institutional responsibilities, reporting systems, and enforcement approaches, helping make climate commitments measurable, trackable, and enforceable. Honorable Rohijan Manjang, the Minister of Environment, Climate Change and Natural Resources, described the workshop as timely as it comes at a time when the Climate Change Act has successfully completed its third reading at the National Assembly and is now awaiting imminent assent by His Excellency, the President of the Republic of the Gambia, calling the process as a national commitment to confront climate realities.
These 2 days, we expect it to be very rigorous because we want to make sure that the zero draft is enriched, is scrutinized, is reviewed, is queried, but constructively with the right technical knowledge. And we have the capacity in the room. We have the expertise in the room. We have witnessed several reforms of our laws, new ones for that matter as well, and this includes under the ministry the first Climate Change Act. It has gone through a rigorous process, and finally, hopefully this week, it will be signed at the last stage by His Excellency, the President.
The minister added that the general implementation regulations will set out institutional mandates, coordination mechanisms, and frameworks for compliance, monitoring, and enforcement described as the operational backbone of the Act. She stressed that regulations must align with national reform priorities and international commitments while reflecting the Gambia's socio-economic and environmental realities.
You will have to put in to make sure that the document is enriched, is inclusive as much as possible, is scrutinized constructively, professionally, and with the right knowledge, not just for any other thing, but to make sure that a document is presented for the Gambia to work on that will serve at least the minimum possible 10 years to come. Regulations do not go very far, but again, if they are well drafted and written, they can support all interests. And this is why we want to make sure that everyone that matters have the opportunity, no matter how tight the time is, to scrutinize them.
This scrutiny is expected to lay the foundation for regulations that enable practical and measurable progress in addressing climate change challenges nationwide.